Welcome to the battlefield of brains, where strategy meets chaos, and every move burns with intensity. Watch grandmasters clash, pieces fall, and legends rise. Irwanto Zadikin throws the first punch. The white pawn storms to d4, planting a flag in the center. The battlefield is open. The drums of war are beating. Wesley So answers with his knight leaping to f6, the black cavalry charging forward, eyeballing that central pawn like a hungry wolf. White calmly brings his own knight to f3, a loyal guardian standing shoulder to shoulder with the d4 pawn, saying, "Not today, buddy." Nenistianen. Kierne. Any. Eneneshoted Komi. Engineer Bissia. Wesley slides his pawn to e6, a shield wall rising, preparing for the dark-squared bishop to join the fray. Black is tightening armor. White isn't slowing down. Pawn to c4, claiming even more land, building a fortress of pawns like castles in the middle. Wesley frowns and pushes. b6, quietly loading the sniper rifle. The bishop on c8 is ready to become a long-range assassin. Irwanto flanks. Pawn to g3, announcing the fianchetto. The white bishop wants to rule the long diagonal like a warlord on a hill. Boom. Black bishop comes out to a6, targeting the c4 pawn like a predator circling prey. Wesley wastes no time with subtlety. White covers the c4 pawn with b3, a little pawn bodyguard, like a loyal soldier jumping in front of a bullet. The black bishop stabs forward to b4, checking the king with a sharp arrow. Dance, my friend, dance. Wesley smirks. White blocks with his bishop on d2, like a knight raising his shield to absorb the blow. Solid defense, but pinned down. The bishop retreats to e7, cool as ice, like a sniper holstering his rifle after testing White's reflexes. Irwanto brings his bishop to g2, the great dragon awakens on the long diagonal, fire building in its lungs. Wesley pushes chicks, locking the center like castle gates, preparing to push d5 and fight back. White calmly slides his bishop to c3, no retreat, just repositioning. The bishop stares at g7, saying, "I'll be back." Black smashes the center open with d5. Pawns collide, dust and sparks fill the battlefield. Wesley is not holding back. White knight jumps boldly to f5, like a lone warrior diving straight into enemy lines. Brave or reckless? We'll see. Wesley glares and shoves the knight away. His other knight jumps to d7, forming a wall to kick out White's staring invader. White's knight says, "Fine, let's trade blood," and takes the black knight on 7. Steel clashes, the field shakes. Black's knight recaptures, evening the trade. Neither side blinking, just scars added to the field. White knight falls back to d2, regrouping like a soldier circling for another attack route. Wesley quietly activates his rook to sate, loading the cannon on the open file. Pressure is building. White castles kingside. The king slips to safety behind his pawns, soldiers saluting as the monarch hides in the fortress. Wesley isn't late to the party. He castles too. Both kings, now safely tucked, ready for war to truly begin. White shoves the pawn to e4, a bold strike in the center, screaming, "Come and fight me, Wesley!" Black answers instantly with c5, slamming into white's structure like a battering ram breaking castle walls. White accepts the challenge. Pawn takes d5, an explosion at the heart of the board. Black strikes back, recapturing with his pawn. The battlefield is now open, no turning back. White pawn lunges and takes on c5, breaking black's defenses apart. Pieces start scattering. But Wesley doesn't blink. His pawn chomps on c4, countering strike for strike, like two samurai trading cuts. White's c-pawn pushes deep into enemy territory, now standing like a lone spy inside black's camp. Dangerous. But boom. Black's pawn takes the b3 defender, carving open white's queenside like tearing down a wall. White knight leaps to c4, aiming at b6 and 6, a sword spinning in the chaos. Black pawn keeps marching. That b2 pawn looks like a ticking time bomb heading straight for promotion. White bishop says, "Not on my watch," and smashes the pawn on b2 pawn. Crisis averted, but the bishop is now exposed. Wesley pounces. His bishop takes on c4, trading off white's strong piece. Sharp fangs everywhere! White queen flies out to g4, her blade flashing, targeting the g7 pawn and eyeing checkmate threats. A deadly glare. Black bishop steps back to f6, coolly covering g7. Wesley smirks. "Not today, Irvanto." Undokazi, undistilled, and the sedis, and station, alcohol. Boom! White bishop sacrifices itself, taking black's bishop on f6 podium. The battlefield trembles, blood for blood. And here we shift gears toward the middle-game carnage. Wesley Wesley's queen swoops in, recapturing the bishop on f6 pochtai. The black queen stands tall, dripping with revenge, glaring straight into white's army. White pawn crashes forward, capturing on 7. This tiny soldier suddenly turns into a hero, threatening promotion, making black sweat. Black quickly shifts the rook to 7, blocking the pawn's dream. The rook is like a massive steel wall shouting, "No promotion for you."
No.1 und siłowcze bitte ist zwischen Diana.
White doubles rooks, sliding the big gun to cone. The cannons are lining up. No.1 wants to blast the c-file open. Wesley calmly develops his bishop to e6, locking down Sate, staring coldly at White's pawn. Black's pieces now cover each other like soldiers back to back. The White queen sneaks to a4, crosshairs pointed at the weak a7 pawn. She's hunting, looking for blood. Black rook smashes the pawn on 7, wiping out White's advanced soldier. The heroic pawn dies, but it took Black's attention and gave White momentum. White doubles rooks again, stacking them on the d-file like twin cannons ready to fire. Pressure rising. Wesley's queen strolls to b2, greedy eyes sparkling. She's sniffing for pawns, ready to gobble everything in sight. White counters, rook slides to bone, staring the queen down like, "Don't you dare move, lady."
Nen, in that voice, unastikot, onions, sedio.
And the queen says, "Too late." Champ. She takes the pawn on a2, scoring material and grinning like a thief in the night. White queen retaliates instantly, snapping the black queen with a vengeance. No more royalty, both queens off the board. Black rook wastes no time, crashing into done with check. A rook stabbing down the file like a lightning bolt. White rook must recapture. Rook takes rook, metal smashing metal, sparks flying. Wesley's bishop seizes the open moment, gobbling the pawn on a2. The black bishop is now deep in White's backyard, hunting stragglers. White rook screams down to a1, hunting that bishop saying, "You're trapped, my friend."
No.
But Wesley slithers away. Bishop retreats to c4, safe and smug, still slicing the board with a deadly stare. White rook retaliates by grabbing the pawn on a7, balancing material. The rook waves the captured pawn like a war trophy. Black rook shifts to bait, instantly targeting White's rook. The black cannon is ready to blast. White bishop slides to f1, pulling back into defense, covering key squares like a loyal bodyguard. Wesley advances his bishop to d5, planting it firmly in the center. It's a dominating post, cutting across the battlefield like a general giving orders. White bishop climbs to b5, locking eyes on cheeks and daring the rook. A sharp stare-down begins. Black pushes g6, building air for his king, but also showing muscles. Black pawns are ready to rumble. White rook charges to 7, invading enemy lines, standing tall in Black's camp. It's a warning. One step closer, and I'll start looting.
Nenna. Yini.
Wesley's bishop slides back to e6, calmly blocking and shutting the door. He says, "Nice try, no entry."
Nennian. On Benitschipennen, she was sick guy.
White rook refuses to back off, climbing even deeper to d6, like a spy sneaking into the command center. Black king steps to fight, closer to the battlefield now, ready to fight alongside his troops. White pawn storms to Fowler, flexing muscles, supporting the rook, and preparing a push. Irvanto is breathing fire. Black king marches further, stepping boldly to e7. Wesley isn't hiding. He's leading the army personally now. White rook doubles on c6, heavy artillery in position, staring at the weak queen side. White is yelling, "Fire in the hole!" And here the game slowly shifts into the endgame battlefield. Wesley plants his bishop on d5, like a commander waving a flag. That piece cuts across the board, dominating the lanes. Black is saying, "This ground is mine."
Now born.
White pulls the rook back to c2, regrouping his heavy artillery. Irvanto knows, sometimes you need to reload before the next strike. Black rook slides to 8, lurking with menace. The cannon on the a-file is ready to rain destruction. White bishop moves to c4, eyeing black central squares, trying to create a shield wall. The bishops glare at each other, tension high. Wesley says, "Enough games." And his bishop slams into White's bishop Panayat. The c4 guardian falls. Boom. One less defender for White. White rook retakes on c4, cannons exchanging fire, smoke fills the air. Irvanto's rook stands defiant on the front line. Black king strides to d6, no longer hiding in the back. Wesley's king is now a warlord on the march. White pawn pushes to 5, aggressive, like a berserker charging straight into enemy lines. White wants blood. Black rook swings to a5, slicing across the 5th rank. It's a guillotine blade waiting to fall. White pawn takes on g6. Finally, a capture. White soldiers score a point. The g-file opens in fire and smoke. But black instantly recaptures. Pawn takes pawn. The line stays closed, and Wesley keeps control. White rook shifts to Fowler, aiming at the weak f6 pawn. It's like a hunter lining up a shot through the scope. Black rook slams to 5, staring White's rook down. Two cannons face to face. This is Wild West standoff energy. White rook checks from d4, firing a warning shot at the king. It's not deadly, but it's loud. Black king sidesteps to chicks, calm under fire. Wesley doesn't flinch. He keeps walking forward like a boss. White rook swings back to c4. Another check. Irvanto trying to harass, like a mosquito buzzing around a lion. Black king strolls to b7, safe on the queen side. The king is like, "Is that all you got?" Nyai. White rook changes direction, again, to e4. He's probing, looking for weaknesses, but time is slipping away. Black rook calmly drops to f7, covering everything. It's like a shield locking into place, unbreakable. White rook rushes to b4, pointing guns at the queenside pawns. He wants counterplay, but he's running out of tricks. Black king steps back to chicks, slowly tightening the noose. Wesley is strangling the board methodically. Another rook check from white. He's throwing punches, but they're starting to look desperate now. Black king calmly returns to d5. He marches with authority. This is not running, this is domination. White rook darts back to b4, still looking for pawns. But it's like scratching a tank with a butter knife. Black king shifts to c5. Step by step, Wesley is tightening control. The white rook looks nervous. White rook retreats to bone, trying to set up one last defensive line. But the fortress looks fragile. Boom! Boom! Black pawn storms to b5, like a battering ram smashing the gates. The final breakthrough is here. White rook checks desperately from cone, a final flare shot into the sky. Help! Reinforcements needed. Nen. Dos. Black king struts to b4, fearless, untouchable. And here Irvanto resigns. Wesley So claims the battlefield, victorious in blood and fire. 0-1. Game over. I'll end the video here. Please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll keep finding the best and newest videos to share with you. Thank you so much, and I wish you all happiness and good health. No.1